An American director, producer, screenwriter, and composer, many consider John Carpenter to be one of the most influential filmmakers of all time. But where did he come from? And how did he get to be the master of cinema he is today? Join us as we dive into 100 facts you may not know about Hollywood legend John Carpenter. Born in Carthage, New York on January 16, 1948, to Milton Gene Carter and Howard Ralph Carpenter, his family relocated to Bowling Green, Kentucky when he was just 5 years old. His father's work as a music professor in Western Kentucky University inspired Carpenter to make music of his own at a very young age. This would later pay off in his career, as he's known for self-composing the majority of his film's musical scores. Carpenter credits Bernard Herrmann, who scored most of Alfred Hitchcock's films, as a major musical inspiration when it came to composing his own films. His influence especially shines through in 1978's Halloween, The Fog, and 2018's Halloween. However, his most influential piece of music goes to Dmitri Tiomkin's score on 1956's Forbidden Planet, a science fiction film known for its electronic music. Now considered his signature sound, Carpenter began using synthesizers to score his movies out of necessity, as a single keyboard could produce the same result as a full orchestra. He developed an interest in films at an early age, being particularly drawn toward westerns by John Ford and Howard Hawks, low-budget horrors from the 1950s, and high-budget science fiction. In fact, the renowned filmmaker claims his love of westerns got him into the movie business in the first place, despite ever having directed one in his entire career. A director since birth, he filmed horror short films before he was even in high school. He attended Western Kentucky University before transferring to the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts in 1968. While attending USC Cinema, Carpenter wrote and directed an 8-minute short film called Captain Voyeur. After being rediscovered in the USC archives in 2011, this film revealed several elements that Carpenter would later use in Halloween, including long tracking shots and harsh dramatic lighting. Another student project Carpenter wrote while attending USC, The Resurrection of Bronco Billy, won the Academy Award for live-action short film in 1970. He ultimately quit school altogether to make his first feature film, Dark Star, which he directed at only 26 years old. Released in 1974, Dark Star was a science fiction comedy that Carpenter co-wrote with Dan O'Bannon, screenwriter for Ridley Scott's Alien. In addition to writing, Carpenter produced, directed, and scored the film. With a budget of only $60,000, Carpenter received wide recognition for his talent at low-budget filmmaking. Wearing many hats would become a trend for Carpenter, as he also wrote, directed, and scored the next film, Assault on Precinct 13, in addition to editing it under the pseudonym John T. Chance. This name paid homage to John Wayne's character in Rio Bravo, Carpenter's main source of influence while making Assault on Precinct 13. Carpenter considers Assault on Precinct 13 to be his first real film because it was his first to make it on schedule. It was also his first time working with writer-producer Deborah Hill, who would play a major role in the creation of some of Carpenter's most iconic titles, including Halloween, The Fog, and Escape from New York. Donald Pleasance later stated he only accepted the role in Halloween because his daughters were such big fans of Assault on Precinct 13 and John Carpenter's music. Carpenter met his first wife, actress Adrienne Barbeau, on the set of his TV movie, Someone's Watching Me, in 1978. Barbeau would star in The Fog and appear in Escape from New York during the course of their marriage. The couple shared one child, John Howard Jr., whom they nicknamed Cody, to avoid confusion with his father. The 1978 thriller featuring Faye Dunaway and Tommy Lee Jones, Eyes of Laura Mars, was adapted from a spec script of Carpenter's simply titled Eyes. This would be his first major studio film. His next would launch the legendary slasher genre and birth of many knockoff franchises over the next couple decades. Released on October 25, 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween filmed on a budget of $300,000 and grossed a respectable $65 million, making it Carpenter's highest-grossing film to date. Originally titled The Babysitter Murders, Carpenter developed the story with the help of producer Irwin Yablans, who suggested that it occur on Halloween. Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote the script for Halloween in just 10 days. According to Hill, the character of Laurie Strode is named for John Carpenter's first girlfriend. The character of Michael Myers is based on an encounter John Carpenter had while touring a psychiatric hospital. He claimed a child there stared at him with a look of evil that terrified him. Another self-composed film, Carpenter pulled inspiration from Dario Argento's Suspiria, and William Friedkin's The Exorcist for Halloween's iconic musical score, which he composed in a mere 3 days. Carpenter decided to cast an old college buddy, Nick Castle, as the Shape, aka Michael Myers, after a simple set visit because he liked his stature and the way he walked. Carpenter cameos as the voice of Paul, Annie's boyfriend, a character that never appears on screen and is only heard in phone conversations. Robert Englund revealed in an interview that prior to playing the notorious knife-wielding maniac that haunts your dreams in A Nightmare on Elm Street, Carpenter hired him to throw bags of dead leaves on the set of Halloween for one day. The never-seen, only mentioned character of Ben Tramer was named after Carpenter's college buddy, Bennett Tramer. Carpenter also named his uncredited cameo in The Fog, Bennett, after Tramer. Released in 1979, the TV movie Elvis would mark Carpenter's first of many collaborations with actor Kurt Russell over the next several years. Coincidentally, Elvis Presley played a character named Dr. John Carpenter in Change of Habit 10 years prior to the release of Carpenter's Elvis. 1980's The Fog turned out to be a sort of Halloween reunion, reuniting John Carpenter with actresses Jamie Lee Curtis and Nancy Kyes. The director even named the male lead Nick Castle after the actor who portrayed the Shape. Carpenter shot The Fog in anamorphic widescreen to give the otherwise low-budget horror a grander and more cinematic feel. After disliking an early cut of the film, he added approximately $200,000 in additional footage and reshoots. Carpenter stated in special edition commentary released in 2002 that although The Fog is not his favorite film, he considers it to be a minor horror classic. Initially approached by Avco Embassy Pictures to make a film based off a novel called The Philadelphia Experiment, Carpenter pitched Escape from New York instead. The studio liked the idea so much they greenlit it almost immediately. Carpenter co-wrote the screenplay for Escape from New York in 1976 with Halloween alum Nick Castle as a reaction to Nixon's Watergate scandal. Studio executives pressured Carpenter to cast a more stereotypical tough guy for the role of Snake Plissken, but he opted for his buddy Kurt Russell instead, as his youth, looks, athleticism, and freshness to the action genre made him Carpenter's ideal choice for the part. Despite the obvious setting, Escape from New York filmed primarily in St. Louis, Missouri, due to its rundown and dilapidated vibe at the time. Carpenter purchased the old Chain of Rocks bridge from the St. Louis government for $1 and returned it for the same amount after filming Wrapped. While filming in New York, Carpenter convinced officials to grant full access to Liberty Island, making his team the first production company in history to film the Statue of Liberty overnight. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre director Tobe Hooper was first hired by Universal to helm The Thing, even though John Carpenter was the producer's first choice. Over a short time, the studio grew unhappy with the direction of Hooper's concept, and the project ultimately got shelved until Carpenter took the reins a few years later. Carpenter has stated out of all of his films, The Thing is his personal favorite. He even lent his voice to the video game released in 2002, playing the character of Dr. Faraday. He considers The Thing to be part of his Apocalypse trilogy, named for the film's bleak endings, along with Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness. John Carpenter has suggested that The Thing's disappointing audience reaction can be largely attributed to the success of Steven Spielberg's E.T. The Thing is the first film Carpenter did not score himself. Carpenter attributes the film's opening sequence as one of the main experiences that made him want to fly a helicopter. He now holds a commercial pilot's license and flies rotorcraft helicopters. He even included helicopters in many of his films and often makes a cameo as a pilot. Carpenter's notorious science fiction romance, Starman, was produced by Michael Douglas and released by Columbia Pictures. Douglas hired Carpenter for Starman because his ability to direct action films and convey strong emotions. Although barely breaking even, Starman's box office total of $28.7 million makes it John Carpenter's next highest-grossing film, second only to Halloween. The theme of Big Trouble in Little China was performed and recorded by the Coupe de Ville, a rock band consisting of John Carpenter, Nick Castle, and Tommy Lee Wallace, who would later direct Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Released in 1986, Big Trouble in Little China was originally written as a Western before Carpenter changed the setting to modern times. Towards the beginning of Big Trouble, a chase sequence unfolds between a street gang and our main characters. For safety reasons, John Carpenter shot this entire scene in reverse before playing forward and speeding up the final product. Filmed on a budget of $19 to $25 million, Big Trouble in Little China would be Carpenter's biggest flop with a total gross of $11.1 million. Despite later gaining a cult following, John Carpenter struggled to get financing for future films after Big Trouble in Little China bombed in the box office. This led him to return to his roots as a low-budget independent filmmaker, creating other cult classics, Prince of Darkness and They Live. Carpenter returned to his alma mater for Prince of Darkness, filming several scenes on USC campus. Similar to Nick Castle's story, Alice Cooper asked John Carpenter to visit the set of Prince of Darkness, only to later be cast as a prominent role by the Prince of Darkness himself. He'd later cast numerous homeless people as extras and bit parts on the set of They Live, paying them in food as well as paychecks. Actors Roddy Piper and David Keith rehearsed their major fight scene in John Carpenter's backyard for 3 weeks. The battle was supposed to only last 20 seconds, but Carpenter was so impressed by their choreography that he kept the sequence intact, lasting a full 5 minutes and 20 seconds. They Live pushed its original release date of October 21, 1988 to November 4th to avoid competition with the release of Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers, which coincidentally is the first film in the franchise to not involve John Carpenter. Carpenter married his current wife, film producer Sandy King, in 1990. King, who had been the script supervisor on Carpenter's earlier films, went on to produce the majority of his movies through the 90s and early 2000s. Although the 90s represented Carpenter's decline in commercial success, he would still sneak in a few more cult horror classics, such as In the Mouth of Madness and Vampires. Prior to filming Vampires, Carpenter had considered retiring from the industry, feeling burnt out after a string of box office bombs. He only accepted the gig because the idea of making a horror western intrigued him. Carpenter worked out a deal with Vampires star James Woods, who was notorious for being difficult on set. Woods could improvise one take if he shot another exactly as it was written in the script. Vampires was the most successful opening weekend box office take of any of John Carpenter's films, raking in $9.1 million in its first 3 days. Jamie Lee Curtis originally asked Carpenter to direct Halloween H2O 20 years later in an attempt to reunite the cast and crew of the first Halloween. However, he ultimately quit after the producers turned down his asking fee of $10 million. Carpenter began dabbling in the video game world in the late 90s, composing the soundtrack to 1998's Sentinel Returns for PC and PlayStation. Later in 2005, Carpenter began collaborations with Titan Productions on a first-person action game called Psychopath, which planned to have a tie-in feature film that Carpenter would direct. Developments on this project have since stalled and has never been completed nor released. Carpenter collaborated with several rock icons to help compose the score for 2001's Ghost of Mars, recruiting the likes of thrash metal band Anthrax, Steve Vai, Buckethead, and former Guns N' Roses, current Nine Inch Nails guitarist Robin Fink. Unfortunately, the box office and critical failure of Ghost of Mars prompted Carpenter to announce his retirement from Hollywood for good. The year 2005 would see 2 remakes of Carpenter films, Assault on Precinct 13 and The Fog, the latter of which Carpenter produced himself. Despite his 2001 announcement, Carpenter returned to the silver screen almost a full decade later with 2010's The Ward, his final stint as director. The Ward would be Carpenter's first feature to not film in his signature Panavision since his debut of Darkstar. In 2012, Carpenter added award-winning comic book creator to his resume with the creation of Storm King Comics, which he co-founded with his wife Sandy King. The powerhouse of horror spent 2 years researching how to make comics in preparation for the company's launch. They have since released multiple award-winning comic book series under Storm King Comics, including John Carpenter's Tales for a Halloween Night, and most notably, John Carpenter's Asylum. Most recently, Carpenter co-wrote The Joker, Year of the Villain for DC Comics, released in 2019. Between 2015 and 2017, Carpenter released 3 studio albums with the indie music label Sacred Bones Records. He even began touring in 2016, performing alongside his son Cody and godson Daniel Davies. The backing band for Tenacious D also provided the rhythm section on his tour. Cody helped his father write his first album, Lost Themes 1, while living in Japan, collaborating strictly through email. His godson Daniel is son of lead guitarist, co-creator of The Kinks, Dave Davies. Cody Carpenter and Daniel Davies also helped John Carpenter compose the score to 2018's Halloween. Carpenter's work as executive producer, co-composer, and creative consultant on David Gordon Green's Halloween marks his return to the franchise that put him on the map since producing Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. A bit superstitious, Carpenter considers it bad luck to wear a hat of a film he's working on and will refuse to wear any crew merch until the film has wrapped. And there you have it. What surprised you the most? Did we miss anything? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you'd like to learn about next. And as always, share, like, and subscribe